from 0 followers to over 100,000 followers, and he's still growing. If you don't know who Neel Dhingra is, aka Neil Home, he is someone who is taking the mortgage industry, but more importantly, the real estate industry by storm. But more importantly, he has 10x his income. He's gone from $300,000 to over 4 million in under 4 years. But the real question is, how did he do it off of one simple strategy on social media while everyone else is trying to be everywhere and do everything? He executed one thing extremely well. Naturally, I analyzed over 60 of his Instagram reels and TikToks so that you didn't have to. So in this video, we're going to break down his short form video scripting formula, and we're going to look at the 5 principles that he upholds in every single one of his videos in order to consistently get views and in order to do well with every single video that he puts out. So let's get started. I remember when Neil was starting his second account back in like 2018, 2019, but he's actually been in business for over 20 years as a lender. And for the first 15, he actually never reached $1 million in income. So when he first started, he was actually only getting about 100 likes on every single video. And then on his graphic posts, he was only getting about 50 likes. So just like everybody else, he started for nothing. And for the longest time, it seemed like he was just slowly grinding despite the amazing content that he was putting out. And in 2021, he had a breakout year by building his personal brand. He went from doubling his business to quadrupling his business to now doubling it again to over $4 million in income. So how did he do it? So first, his content strategy. His content strategy, it's very simple because he actually outlines it on his bio that people follow him to learn how to make more money, how to build wealth, and how to invest. And that is a very simple but true tagline to what he is trying to teach you. And that's what he focuses on with his content. But his scripting and his formula is really how he gets the views. And that's what I want to dive into. Let's break down one of his videos. At the beginning of the video, he has a hook and he says,
So this is the hack that people use to get rich.
So this is the hack that people use to get rich. And what you'll notice is that one, it has a linking word at the beginning, so, and then hack. So it has something that's a little contrasting to that simplicity. It almost has you have this behind the scenes look at some type of secret. And then he again has a very simple how people use to get rich. And everybody, no matter who you are, you want to get rich. Making more money is one of probably the biggest wants and needs and desires for most people. So that hook together grabs in a big audience.
By the way, you and I can do the same thing too.
And he has another linking word of and, but then he brings you into the conversation with him by saying you and him can get the same results as this other person, which allows it to feel more like a dialogue rather than a monologue where he's trying to teach you, he's trying to have a conversation with you. And that's a huge difference.
Rich people use debt as a tool. Let me explain.
And this introduces the solution, but it doesn't quite tell you everything about it. And he says, let me explain. So you're like, okay, I'll listen to more.
When a debt is tied to an asset that goes up in value, that's considered a good debt.
So now he's made a point, you understand it. It's very simple. And it's in layman's terms.
Or when you can use a good debt to pay off a bad debt, that's a huge win.
And that kind of gives you the aha moment. It's like, okay, I'm starting to understand. And it's, again, very simple to follow.
That's how rich people use debt to their advantage to become even more wealthy.
So throughout this whole thing, it's very simple, made one clear point, talked in 3rd to 5th grade language. It's very clear, it's understandable, very succinct. He keeps it very short and sweet because at the end of the day, a reel, you only have like 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8 lines of content that you can fit into one video. That is how it is so powerful, is he is not trying to make 100 different points. He's trying to make one clear point so you can understand it, you can remember it, and then you feel like you've gotten value from watching his videos. The next video I want to break down is a little different, talking about the housing market and the housing bubble. Before I get into that, is he talks about controversial topics which get more comments, which have people argue about different points of view, which ends up getting more views, and the Instagram and TikTok and all the algorithms feed it to more people because there's more comments and more conversations being had on the video. In this video, his hook is,
here's when the housing bubble will burst.
so immediately he grabs you because he reaffirms the thought in your head that you're saying the housing bubble is going to burst. And he agrees. He's like, yes, here's when it will happen. There's a lot of other things he does, kind of like speeds in, zoom. There's a title sticker. It feels very native to Instagram. And then some of the effects add to kind of visualize the idea. So then again, he transitions by saying,
Now this is based on real data, so stick with me here.
he's added credibility. He said this is based on data, and he's saying, okay, continue watching more. So that gets you to retain the viewer.
Interest rates have gone up recently, which is cooling buyer demand. And at the same time, sellers are being unrealistic with the price that they want for their home, which is causing inventory to rise.
So this is now the setup to the entire video. He says, interest rates have gone up, which is starting to cool buyer demand. And at the same time, sellers are being unrealistic with the price that they want for their home, which is causing inventory to rise. So now he's kind of set up this problem where buyer demand is cooling off and then sellers are being unrealistic. So it's also increasing the number of homes on the market.
Because of these two issues, home prices are cooling off, but they're not gonna crash because of these two factors.
So now he's had a contrasting opinion. So he's agreed, home prices are cooling off. So he's reaffirmed your thoughts and what you're already kind of seeing in the market, but then he contrasts it with his opinion. And he says, but these are the two reasons why it's not gonna cool off, which gets you again to open another loop and you're wondering, okay, what are these 2 points? So it gets you to continue watching more.
There simply aren't enough vacant homes to meet the current population demands. And most homeowners' properties are worth more than what they owe.
So right there, he's kind of resolved the loop. He said, one, supply and demand is still kind of broken. So there's a lot of buyer demand, but there's not enough supply to meet that demand. Now, on top of that, he contrasts it by saying homeowners still have way more equity than they used to, because back in 2008, equity was a problem. And so what you'll kind of notice is throughout every single video, he follows this similar flow. It is the hook, it's the setup, the buildup of the entire video, introducing some form of conflict or curiosity so that you can introduce the main points, and the main points can resolve the problem, but you don't resolve it until the very end of the video. So this altogether allows people to watch more, which is the most important thing when it comes to any video. It does not matter if it's TikTok, does not matter if it's Instagram Reels, YouTube, whatever. All these platforms care about one thing, is can you get the average viewer to watch the entire video? And platforms like TikTok want them to watch more. So they actually want your average watch time to be over 100%. And then on top of that, platforms like YouTube not only want the viewer to watch your entire video, they want them to stay on the platform and keep watching more videos. So having viewer retention throughout the entire video is absolutely crucial. And this is why having a good formula and a good script that you follow allows you to have structure, and then around that structure you can be a little more fluid, and that's where your creativity can flow. And the more you practice, like Neel did, you'll able to really pump out amazing videos. So now I kind of want to go into what are the things that he's kind of doing that are complementary to everything, because the script and everything, it's great, but there's a lot of things that are just kind of subtle. They're just there. And you wouldn't quite notice them right away unless you have the eye for it. It's kind of like when you see a red car, you start seeing more red cars. Or if you buy a Tesla, you're like, wow, there's so many more Teslas on the road. And it's not that there's just out of nowhere more Teslas. It's that your ability to notice something because you've seen it once and you created that recognition, you're gonna start seeing it more and more again. That's the red car effect. So these are his 5 principles of growth from my point of view. The very first thing is what's called a contrarian type of opinion. And what this kind of means to me is that he's not introducing a new subject. It's actually quite old. And he's not the only one that talks about it. There's everybody talking about finance and wealth and real estate and investing. It's how do you introduce it in a new way? And that's how do you be contrary to everyone else. And this is super crucial in an industry like real estate where everybody is copying everybody and sounding like everybody. You blend in, you don't stand out. That ends up becoming just noise. Now, if you are able to stand out, that's how you get heard and understood, and that's how you get more views. You can do this by challenging common held beliefs and spinning them in a unique way. So that's the way to kind of think about it. And number 2 is his expertise. He only talks about things that he knows. And Gary Vee talks about this all the time. It's not about saying 100 different things. It's about how do you say those things that you know extremely well in 100 different ways so you can hit 100 different people. And that's the importance of not trying to sound like everybody else and not trying to copy and emulate them, in allowing your expertise to shine and figure out how do you get what you know conveyed into the world in a lot of different ways, because people resonate with things differently. The next one, the simplicity, the clearness, and the conciseness of his cadence. So he speaks in a 3rd grade language, almost like he's talking to a 3rd grader or 5th grader. You wouldn't have to be really smart to understand what he's saying. And he's very clear and very concise, to the point where he makes his point and he makes a new point. He doesn't keep dragging it on. It's important, and why all the writers talk about you have to write in a 3rd to 5th grade language. You don't want to be using these buzzwords or these industry lingo that other people will not understand. And the way he does this is he has 5 to 7 lines, usually of content, and he's very brief and to the point. And he uses a lot of linking words as well, so that this way he can continue the thought as if it's a very seamless conversation. And there's all these different ways to contrast back and forth or continue the conversation. And that's important when it comes to scripting. Now, number 4, which not everyone's gonna be in favor with, is controversy. This is having that thing where it could be the villain, where you can have people have comments and controversial conversation between the two. You're dividing, because at the end of the day, when you try to appease everyone, you appease no one. So what we need to do is we need to have a point of view, and we have to stand for that point of view. Now, that doesn't mean you have to die by the sword by it. You can change your point of view. You can do what he does, where he contrasts it, where he says, this is when the housing market will crash, or this is when housing prices will drop, but this is why right now it's not happening. So he's explaining it could happen, but right now it's just not happening because of these factors. And it's very clear, very easy, again, to that 3rd to 5th grade language. And the last part, which I talk about all the time, is having a storytelling framework. And this is very simply, how do you grab their attention with a hook? And then when you have that hook, how do you increase the anticipation and the buildup? How do you set up the rest of the video so that there's a little curiosity and anticipation for, I want to watch more? And he does this by saying, let me explain, or here's why, or you and I can do the same thing too. And there's a lot of other ways of doing this, but that's just how he does it as an example. And so when you set up the video and then you kind of introduce a little conflict, so that starts to create a little controversy, or it makes you want to continue watching because you're wondering, will he resolve this question that I have in my mind of when will home prices drop? And then he resolves it, but also introduces another one. He says, but there's 2 factors that are causing it not to drop. So again, introducing conflict and getting you to watch more by not exactly telling you at the exact line, but in the next line or the next 2 lines, he is. So having that structure of hook, setup, which can also be called transition, but hook, setup, conflict, resolution is the basic flow, and is very simple. 4-part framework: hook, setup, conflict, resolution. And that is how you structure your videos like he does, to kind of tell a story and get the viewer to watch the entire video till the end. Now, here's a little secret that I did not hint at the beginning. I think these are things that we could embody so we could learn from what he's doing well. So let's get into it. So the first intangible element in his videos is, it's interesting to look at. So there's that bokeh effect, which kind of blurs the background. And then he has a light in the background to kind of add depth. That allows a little contrast in the video. You'll see his face is very bright, and in the background it's a little more dark, but there's also a light to kind of show that depth. So it makes it interesting to watch. The other one is his simple yet authentic kind of feel. And this comes across with his hat. So he kind of dresses slightly business casual sometimes, where he's either wearing like a black t-shirt or he has a black polo. It's not messy, but it's a very simple look. But then he has his hat and his glasses, which makes him a little more relatable. He's not wearing a suit. It's not like someone who is some professional person. He's saying, you and I are on the same page and we are alike. That allows you to kind of see yourself in him. And that kind of gives you this hero and the guide effect. And what that is when you look at someone, you say, wow, I could do that too, you're more likely to listen to them. But if you look at him and you say, wow, look at him. He has a Rolex watch on. He's got a nice suit. He's got perfect hair and all of this perfection. Then it's almost like this unimpossible feat to kind of reach and achieve what he's trying to teach. So instead, he dulls that down and he allows himself to be more approachable and authentic. And I think that's super crucial. And then something that goes without saying is the engaging editing. Every single 2 to 3 seconds there's something flying on the screen, text moving, zoom in and out. And when you have these different effects, different words and different zooms, different pans, and you add different colors, that allows there always to kind of rechange the scene for the viewer. And having that is super crucial to having engaging videos, having engaging editing, which means every 2 to 3 seconds, there has to be something that kind of changes. And the thing that I like about his editing is that it's not overbearing. It has a simplistic and authentic feel, which kind of goes back to the other point, but it's not like he's trying to overdo it. It's not anything absolutely crazy where you look at it and you're like, what the heck is going on? It's very simple and it accents. And in my opinion, it's not that everything in his video stands out. It's not the editing. It's not like his clothing. It's his words that stand out. So that space that allows the message to really come across by not overpowering it with something else that's super crazy. I said this in the beginning, this is super important, but he has a mix of not just quality, but quantity. A lot of people get really hooked on, I need to have quality. And the thing that Alex Hormozi learned is that he was only posting, I think it was like 5 or 7 posts a week. And his number one question to Grant Cardone, which he paid over $200,000 to learn about, was, what do I need to do? And Grant Cardone says, look, man, you're only posting once a day. I'm posting 7 to 10 times a day. And Alex is like, okay. And that mindset allowed him to go from 100,000 to 1 million. So by 7xing his output, he actually 10x'd his output and results. For example, with Neel, it's not that he was a 10 out of 10 on video when he first started. And I'm sure he would admit it, he was not amazing. He did it, he got better, he was doing volume, he was working at his conversation skills, his video skills, his presentation skills, his packaging, and he was really refining himself as a speaker. And how do you actually convey a message that someone can understand? And throughout that, and his ability to increase the quality and the quantity at the same time, that is why I think he has been able to grow over 10x from 300,000 to over $4 million a year in take-home income. So if you want to grow like him, just follow that simple principle of you don't have to excel on 100 different platforms. You can excel on one platform, refine it, get better, nail it down, increase the quality, increase the quantity, and scale that. And you can do that by really focusing on your messaging like he does with his storytelling framework. You have the 4 parts of hook, setup, conflict, resolution, and you get better and better at conveying messages, making it more simple, more concise. Then you layer the 5 principles of growth where you make old new. You only talk about what you know. You're very simple, clear, and concise. You have a little spark of controversy, and you have the storytelling framework, and all of that combined is going to allow you to scale up your content and 10x if you put in the work like Neel does. So if you thought this video was helpful, if you could do me the biggest favor in the world, click that like button, subscribe, and stay tuned for more videos like this. If you don't know who I am, my name is Andrew Bayon. I'm the founder and CEO of A Impact Media, which is basically a real estate marketing agency that works with 8 and 9 figure real estate leaders to help them build their brand so that they can elevate their impact beyond themselves. And the reason I create these videos is because I realize I have a goal that I want to impact 1 billion people, and I can't do that if I'm only impacting on a 1-to-1 scale. I have to impact 2, 4, 6 people, and they can spread that. So that's why I create these videos. So share this with anyone who you think this may be helpful. And just so I'm not creating content out of my head, or I'm not looking at people that you don't care about, let me know in the comments, who should I analyze? Whose marketing strategy is absolutely absurdly crazy, outrageous? They're doing exceptionally well in their business. As brand has 2, 3, or 10x. Should I break it down? Put them in the comments and I'll break it down in one of the next videos. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.